Mhm.
Good morning. Hey, how's it going, Skip?
All right. Yeah. I
It's
checked
nice to
out.
meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
All right.
I see you're surrounded by the world there.
I collect maps and globes.
Oh, wow.
I'm fascinated with yeah, I've got to go down in the basement. I have a moon globe down there. Um yeah, I tried to reset up my stuff here. So oh, a little globe and a map and another map and a it's my thing.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a few maps here. If you want to check out where I am, you can see it on Google Maps and stuff. But I have the nautical maps because I'm on the harbor on the ocean.
Oh,
And,
nice.
and then I have maps of this area from the Peabody Essex from 1700s. They
Oh,
cleared some
man.
stuff out, and the one of the artistic designer guys that headed the Peabody Essex lives up the street, and so he let me know when they were going to, auction off or sell some of this stuff. So I got some maps, and they're under glass on frames, and yeah.
Oh, that's great, man. The old maps are really cool. I started collecting them when I was a kid, maybe 10, 11 years old. So I was not to go off, but I'll just tell you real quick. So I'm a geek. So I went to the AV office where I was friends with the lady. So that using the Ditto machine. Do you remember Ditto machines?
Yeah,
They would run, and they were always came out in purple ink,
right.
right? Because that's the only color. So I ran off a couple hundred letters, and
Jeez.
then I filled in a blank and the dear so so dear or whatever. I am interested in your area, your city, your country, your whatever, and I sent them because I was always working, mowing lawns, shoveling snow, delivering newspapers. Went to the post office, got a whole bunch, sent all these letters out. So literally for about a year, starting, maybe 3, 4 weeks after that huge batch went out of requesting info and maps, I had to go buy a filing cabinet eventually because almost every day
You
in the
get some.
mail was more stuff for me than for my parents. And it was usually a big envelope, maps, tourist info. And I still have all that stuff. It's pretty
Wow.
cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
it's fun.
I
From
have the.
all over the world, even from the North Pole.
Oh, wow. Well, I would get stuff from the area that once my world opened up when I had a bike,
Hmm.
then I would get the USGS maps for the area because I was in the Boy Scouts too. And
Oh
then
yeah.
so we could lay out where we're going. And I'm from Portchester, so I'm from New York, but not over by you,
Okay.
over in Westchester County.
Yeah, I
So,
know. I've heard of it. I might have even been through there when maybe on a gig one day or something. Because I used to
well,
gig
if you went
up
up
and
95, you
down.
went right through Portchester because it's Rye, Portchester, then Greenwich, Connecticut.
Oh, okay, yeah,
So
for sure.
for me, it was like a mile away to go
Excuse me.
to the next state. So it was interstate travel right away on the bike. And we
Yeah.
used to go like up the Merritt Parkway and all kinds of stuff, not on the street, but
Hmm.
yeah. So
That's
I know that area because I took lessons over in Valhalla. You know where that is?
vaguely. Yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly, but I can
North
picture.
White Plains,
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
and with Ralph Pace when I was a kid.
Okay.
So
Oh, that's
his
great.
house was right at the base of the reservoir, the dam for the reservoir. Yeah, so I know this area,
So you're in. You're
Boston.
near Boston, right?
Yeah, it's about, we can see Gloucester from here, but across the water. I'm on the
Okay.
North Shore. It's called Cape Ann.
Oh, beautiful.
And when we moved here 30 years ago, it only took 50 minutes. Now it takes an hour and 50 minutes.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I started going. My wife and I started going to Boston. Well, my best friend lives in Manchester, New Hampshire.
mhm,
The way he drives, it's about an hour to Boston. When
mhm.
I drive, it's more like 90 minutes. But So I can get to Boston in an hour. So we go up and see him. This started in '86 when he moved there. Go out and visit. Usually go out once a year, twice a year, and always go to Boston. It has
Yeah.
grown a lot, you know,
Yeah. It looks
like a lot of
real
places.
different. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
now Berkeley has like a 16-story building, you know.
Oh wow, man. I was actually there back in 1980 in the fall. I didn't have much self-confidence at the time, but I went to check it out. No appointment. Uh, I heard the players, and I'm like, okay, I'm out of here. I gotta start. I gotta practice more.
Yeah. Yeah.
I enjoyed it though. I enjoyed it. It was great, but I didn't get my act together till many years later.
I started coming up to my folks moved up here in around 71
Mm-hmm.
from, we had moved when I was 12, 13 to Cleveland. And that's where I did all my living and playing until, except for the stuff went out and traveled, till I came up here.
Okay.
And so I started coming up to do clinics and stuff in, I think, 73. That's when I met like Vinny and Steve Smith. They were at clinics that I did back then.
Oh man, yeah. Because they're kind of like there's a picture of Vinny, Peter Erskine, and Steve that they used to kind of hang out. I know Erskine wasn't a Berkeley guy, but Steve and Vinny were, at least for a time,
Yeah,
right? A
right,
little,
like a
yeah.
year, I think Vinny was. But they were, I didn't know who they were, but I found out after the fact that they knew who I was because they were at the clinic I did in 73. I used to come up every spring, and my connection was Joe Hunt.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so I knew Joe from 67.
Mm-hmm.
He was on the road with Pickwick. It was a Broadway show.
Mm-hmm.
And where I worked in Cleveland, I was on the third floor in this big club that was like a show place kind of thing, dancing girls, comic singers, that kind of thing. And
That's
there was a
cool.
speaker down in the street, and you could come into the bar and go up to the third floor in this little elevator. So he heard me playing through the speaker down on the
Oh.
street. He was
Mm-hmm.
out walking around
Oh
having
wow.
dinner or something. And
Excuse me.
that's how I met him. He came up this elevator and came and saw me. And we've been friends ever since. So it's, you know, a long time now. So he was always trying to get me to come to Boston.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so I would come up, he'd set up for me to do the clinics and private lessons, and that would pay my way to Boston.
Sure. Yeah.
And then they asked me to start teaching there when Alan Dawson left in 75.
Okay.
But I never made it there till 82.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah, you know, your name has come up a lot over the years here and there. So, you know, it's nice to meet you. It's
Yeah, well,
nice to have a face to face of sorts.
and me too,
Um,
because I've seen your stuff, like the stuff you put up today, the Steve Gadd thing from July 83, but there was other ones that you did in the magazine too.
I did. I don't remember which. I know they published two Roy Haynes. I don't know one
And
of
I
them. I
have
can't
those
remember the.
because I use the Roy Haynes stuff. If you want and get into it, I can show you how I use this stuff at school, and your stuff is
Oh no
in the
way! Really?
handouts.
Oh geez. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Snap Crackle's one of them, and I
Yeah,
don't remember if it's off Rastan Roland Kirk or Roy Haynes CD. I don't even know.
yeah,
Might be
it
from
would
a
be
Roy
for,
CD.
yeah, it's a Roy CD, and it would have
Okay.
been from Out of the Afternoon.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It's I have all that on vinyl.
Yeah,
I've you know thousands of vinyl in my basement now because now it's waterproof and not musty. And there's so much vinyl I didn't want my like beams of the house or the floor to sag.
really. Yeah, they're heavy. Yeah, those cubes, if you have those pressboard cubes, weigh
Yeah.
about 80 pounds a piece when they're full of albums.
It's amazing. And yeah, I have a lot of the Blue Note stuff and CTI. Oh man, and, you know, I don't have original pressings of a lot. I'm not that much of a collector, but I like vinyl. Vinyl has a unique feeling to it and sound and rich, full, generally speaking. So Yeah, and I did a Steve Jordan solo too off of one of the Eyewitness albums. They didn't publish it because somebody had already sent it to them. The only reason I did this stuff is so I could learn. I didn't do it to be published. In
Mm-hmm.
fact, the GAD one was the first one I ever transcribed.
Jeez.
And of course, I've got the turntable, right? And I'm using my finger. I had actually, I know what I did. I borrowed my dad's turntable because it had like a
Variable speed.
16.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would go to half of the 33. And you know
Right.
what? I needed that, and I still had to slow down sometimes with my finger.
Yeah.
And so it took a while to do that one and
I'll bet.
go over it and then practice it. But I'm a very visual person. So when I saw it laid out, somehow I could correlate things differently. It's like I could see things, I could hear things now because I was able to see things.
Right.
And it really helped me to understand Steve's playing on that particular song, but also other things too. So, I did it with the Steve Jordan solo. I think is just the phrasing is just so beautiful.
Yeah, I
And I'm
used
not,
that
yeah,
Castelloco one that he did with Steve Kahn.
it's probably off of that. I cannot
Yeah,
remember, but
it's
and Roy
amazing.
Haynes,
So
Roy is Roy. There's only one Roy. I was talking with Sergio the other day, and I made a comment and then he made a comment back. My comment is that I think that it's more difficult now for a musician to establish a true identity where when they hit a note or a few notes or a few measures, it's them because of all the influences prior to us, right? I've been struggling to find my own sound. I sort of did, I guess, but what's really beautiful, and a lot of times you only need to say the first name, Roy,
right.
Buddy, Elvin, and the list goes, Tony, or in other areas, Miles, Train, and you just know it's them by their tone or their something, and
Right.
that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, their personality just jumps through the music and what they're doing. So
Yeah.
but you have to listen for a long time to be able to hear that.
Oh yeah.
It's like recognizing people's voices. I mean, it's the same thing.
Yeah. It really is. It is the same thing. And I did have to listen for decades to really get it. And, some of them I pick up sooner than others. Elvin, for example,
Right.
that whole elasticity thing was so uniquely, primally him. But others, it was harder. It's more difficult.
Yeah, well, everybody that doesn't have a real clear vision, they're not doing it for the sound of it or something. Not that Elvin came at it from that, but it was most expressed in just hearing a note that he played, and other people never approached what they're doing from that standpoint. So the intent, regardless of whether it was the energy or the sound or whatever it was that where he was coming from, was evident to us from pretty much the beginning.
Yeah. I remember, I met Peter Erskine when I was, 72. So I was 11 and he was 18. First tour with Stan Kenton.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny, Peter, if you ever hear this from me, I mean it as a compliment. That first drum kit he went out on the road with, I think every drum was a different manufacturer. No bottom heads, no back head. Didn't matter. It's just kind of funny because the next year I saw him. He had a Slingerland set,
Right.
beautiful. So he had an endorsement. But that aside, that was just a kind of a side remark, is we got to know each other. And even now, we talk every now and then. He played on a CD I put out last year, my first and only ever solo CD, and he was a guest for 2 songs. And I'm not really doing live stuff anymore, gigs. Why I'm into the cognitive rehab, because it offers a new way of improvising, basically, and expressing and experimenting. So now I'm trying to get towards merging this with music somehow. So I've started that. But getting back to my point in this roundabout bypass tangent, we were talking about Elvin one day at breakfast in Toronto back in around 2005 or so. It's like, where did that come from? Like, how did Elvin, where, you know what I mean? That was him, though. It was his voice. It was you. That was Elvin you heard being himself.
Mhm.
And that is just so cool that somebody can express themselves like no one else has ever expressed themselves. And I really love that.
Yeah, I think that early on he found out that that's the only way he could do stuff.
Yeah.
And then that buying into that this is the way it went, made it even stronger, as opposed to, no, I got to go over here and do this kind of thing. It's like realizing you're stuck with yourself and then building on that, you know. And
Yeah.
so,
That's a very relevant point too.
and each of those, like I explained to my students, that, you know, like Tony Williams did the best Tony Williams that I ever heard. And I would get to see him for a week at a time.
Yeah.
Because I would be in that club working opposite them. And the same like with Elvin, and my pedal would break. I'd say, Elvin, can I borrow your pedal? He said, oh no, take the whole damn set. You guys sound like Africa, you know. It'd be those kind of stories. But that went on for like the 3 to 4 years that I worked at that place. And that was like my going to college, because I was playing, like, if I wasn't playing that week, we were still, the guys, the trio that I played with, we still played every day. So it was like, that was my going to school.
Oh, sure. Wow, man, that's so cool. I did see Elvin one time, and it was just a few weeks before he passed. The Regatta Bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was having a hard time too.
And his wife, Kiko, is it?
Yeah.
She helped him to get to the drums, and he played beautifully. You know, it wasn't the same probably as it was 20 years before that, but he played beautifully, and he had that big smile. I got to meet him afterwards, just for a minute. I didn't even know what to say, so I said, I told him, I said, I don't even know what to say, but I just want to say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
He says, oh man, yeah, thanks, oh thanks. And then he gave me the what I've read about, the famous big Elvin hug.
Right.
Yeah, I went outside and I cried.
Yeah.
I called one of my best friends who's a drummer. I said, yeah, I left him a message because he was at a gig. I'm like, Jimmy, I just got a hug from Elvin.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. He was the sweet guy, man, from what I can tell.
Yeah. And that kind of thing that he did by touching you with the hug was what he did with the music. And I think that's what people, if they're listening, that's what they get.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember I went and saw him at Train. I was I think I was like 17 or 18, and I could get in this club because I was big, you know, and I went and saw him, and I had to leave. It was just overpowering. I didn't understand it, and it just seemed like it was so loud. But it wasn't that it was loud, it was that it was so intense.
Yeah.
And Train was playing the whole time. He was in the dressing room, and you could hear him when McCoy was playing his solos. You could hear the saxophone in the dressing room. Wow. And then he would walk out and play and continue playing 15, 20 minute solo, and then walk off, and you go back, and he'd still be playing in the other room when the bass solo was playing or the piano was soloing.
Wow, man. Yeah, I don't know anyone personally who ever, well, I mean, I may know them, but I don't know that they saw Train and Elvin. So you're the first person I've talked to who's seen them and is able to tell me about the experience. Wow.
Yeah, and I got other pictures that I gave. I communicated with Charles Lloyd's wife. I got pictures of him with Cannonball Adderley and Louis Hayes and Joe Zawinul. And then I sent them to Joe's son too, the pictures. You can see him at the piano. But I would pay the guy, you know, there used to be a guy that would take a picture of you and your girlfriend or whatever at the table.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I said, how much is the photos on it? I don't know what it was, but I said, he said, well, what do you want me to, and he started to take a picture of me, and the saxophone player was with me, right? And I'd say, no, don't take pictures of me, take pictures of the band. He was like, what? So I would spend what I had to buy pictures of him in the band. Then he would give them to you at the end of the night in a little frame folder.
Oh, wow.
And I still have those. Like
That's
you have
history.
those. Yeah.
That's so cool though. You know, it's history. It's that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's great. So that kind of thing is what we look at and we listen to and we live through to get to those things. And they end up being a part of what we do, whether it's the teaching or the playing or whatever, or the collecting of maps. It ends up being in all of that stuff. But
Yeah.
that essence that you're wondering about, like, how did Alvin get there? It was that same thing, but his experience was his own.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like you would have to spend a lot of time, and he would have to get to the point where he was comfortable enough to tell you some of those stories about that, like we're talking about for us. He has those, or had those also. And then what you're hearing is this whole tunnel of this experience. And if you buy into it, which I have no evidence to support this, this theory, but it's like what you're hearing is all of that because he decided that this was him and he was going to be able to do it through this. And we hear this and that through that. And if there was anything that for me that I learned from those guys was that I was stuck with being me too. And it ended up being some really good stuff and some really bad stuff, you know, personally and or life or music. That it's all yours.
You know, this topic comes up often. Various conversations. Dom Famularo, Sergio Peter Erskine, Jimmy Haslip, all these people. And it really comes down to something that it took me a long time to realize, even just as a person, is to be you.
Yeah.
Because you are only you and you can't be another person. So why even try? Why don't you be you? And, you know, I think I was about 40. I'm 59. I'll be 60 in a couple months. So I think I was, I'm almost embarrassed, but I'm glad I figured it out that around the age of 48, stop trying to do stuff like everybody else. Not that I always did, but, you know, a little jaunt here. Oh, let's try to do this like that person. Or let's do that. Whether it's drumming or another part of life.
Yeah.
It's time to be me.
Yeah, but that's why it's so difficult to take it and work with students, because you're trying to get them to be mature in their thinking and in their broader view of what the world is through themselves. And it's really hard to do because they don't have, you know, they're still going, I just moved to here and I have a license to drive now, you know, and I'm really interested in drums or whatever they're interested in. And that scope is like this. And you're trying to get them to like step outside and take a look at the moon, you know.
Yeah.
And if you look at the moon long enough, it ends up being that little light at the end of the tunnel, but it takes a long time to get to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and your story is that too.
You know, I wish I could remember the story that Peter told me. It's on an interview I did that's on a playlist with him. I won't even try to paraphrase it right now, but it came back around to this. I know kind of what it was. And then I can't say that he was trying to be somebody else during this particular situation with a lesson or something like that. But I think Peter was feeling like it was the end of the world because he wasn't doing well. So I played so bad I couldn't even look this person in the eyes. And so the guy, whoever it is, a teacher, stand up, go over to the window. What do you see? Trees, grass. What else do you see? The sun, the sky. Oh, there's the moon. Okay, so is it the end of the world?
Mhm.
No. Okay, sit down and play again.
Mhm.
It was like a
Yeah,
paradigm shift, It's
right.
not the end of the world.
No, and that's that same thing I was just talking about is like
Yeah.
they're looking at it like, well, I'm hitting the symbol or whatever. That's not really what they're doing. That's the physical thing of it. But I did a class for years. It was called Mental Concepts of Control,
Oh,
and
wow.
it was 15 weeks of working on two questions, the answers to two questions,
Hmm.
and it was like, why are you playing? And what are you trying to communicate with what you play?
Right.
That's it.
Hmm.
And so then we would do exercises, we would try different things. We do a Sufi breathing exercise called Wafazel, or I would take them and we'd walk through the fens like around Berkeley, and then they have to come back and play that experience.
Yeah. Wow. Um, so something I want to ask you. Oh, the book.
Hmm?
What's the original title of the book that you wrote?
The beat, the body, and the brain.
See, what caught me about Sergio told me about that, and
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it has the word brain in it,
Hmm.
and it's talking about rhythm. I'm sure it's talking about drums, rhythm, and things because of the word beat. And of course, I'm a movement guy, a rehab guy, so the body, like, I gotta find this thing because it sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, I'll send
I,
it to you. The cover has changed because it moved from Warner Brothers to Alfred Music when they bought it.
okay.
And they said, no, we can sell this thing if we put a different cover on it. So they
Okay.
zipped up the cover and made it look more like this century. And it's been out for like 30 years now.
Oh wow, that's great. So tell me, I'm curious how you came up with. Well, actually, no. Let me rephrase this question. What's it about? I mean, I'm imagining that not to surmise anything, but it just sounds like the brain body connection with what you're putting out there. To some,
Well, it includes what you just said about once you did the transcription of the GAD thing, you could see it and it made much more sense. It's a
yeah,
matter of taking whatever's, each person learns differently. It might be just auditory. I mean, I have guys in my class, I'll put videos up there, look at the floor. It's like, okay, great.
yeah, yeah.
But other guys will just look at the video and only see that. They won't really hear it.
I
And they
see.
won't be able to break it down. It just ends up being something going by on the screen.
Hmm.
And that, and other guys will, that's why I use the handouts. So there's the kinesthetic experience. I can't do that now, but in class, they would have these packets to
Right.
grab the idea so that you would have as many senses that you could access for them or give to them to access the information. And that beat the body brain, same thing. You have a beat that you're working on, if it's that kind of thing. And you have your body, how you're going to do this. And then there's a graphic you'll see in the book it's called Mix and Match, and it has a square with all these arrows that are the different combinations. It's the same thing as Ed Soph's brain box. You
Oh,
know about
okay.
that?
I know about it, but I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, well, it's the same thing.
I'll
It's
check
like
it
I
out. Yeah.
stole it from him, but it's the same thing. And then the brain is what's going to help you to unlock what this is that you're seeing, hearing, or trying to play.
Yeah.
So you need all the different facets of how you accept information and the
And,
different ways that you can provide somebody to do that with. And then they get to choose how they're going to access this if they want. If they want to spend the time to figure out how they learn, they'll be able to learn better. And that's a part of becoming who you are, because this is how stuff works. It's not because I don't try other things, but this is how I get it. And then you get to play
yeah.
that or to be that through what you've learned.
Yeah. That it's so interesting. And the learner thing, how people learn. Um, that's interesting too. And I find that in my work, especially, well, if I was to talk about a concept in cognitive training, multitasking training, Some people understand from the words that I say. Other people, you see their eyes glaze over.
Right. Yeah.
They need to come up and they need to have a demonstration, which we ultimately always do anyways. But the bottom line is conceptually, people may understand differently from each other. So we have to do it all. What I find interesting, and my son and I talk about this, is we'll listen to videos, if you will, just hearing the audio. And when we watch it, we're both, I think, wired up very similarly. When we watch the video, it's not that it's not cool. And I am a very visual person, so I like to see things. But I don't hear nearly as much when I watch. So I turn the video off, I take in more audio wise because I'm really I can't see and I'm not distracted.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, a lot of times the sound alone, the audio alone, usually impresses me more than watching, if I'm going to be impressed, or I'll understand it better because I'm hearing the true essence of the person coming through their instrument versus distracted watching their technique. Although there's a visual element that's important to me. So now I usually try to do audio first. I subscribe to the YouTube thing. So, it's like $10 a month and I can minimize the player on my phone and it still keeps playing. So I'm listening to interviews and podcasts and audio. And then when I'm ready, I'll look at the video because I already know the audio in my head of the player, and this way I don't get so distracted. That's really cool. What you're doing is, and you put the book out originally in what year?
It was my master's in education thesis project.
Wow. Okay, cool.
And I did that, and I talked to Sandy Feldstein at the PASIC thing that I did in 1990, and he said, "Yeah, this is cool." So I only talked to one person.
Okay.
And it went from being the thesis to being the book. And then I did the whole book in PageMaker and in Finale.
Oh, good.
And so I just gave it to him on a disc. It was great for him. And then he added stuff in. He put the waves across the top of each page that you'll see because he knew I lived on the ocean. He was very nice to me. And
that's great.
Yeah, and it was great.
It's funny. I've heard of Finale and I've heard of the other one you said, what, PageMaker. Don't know anything about it. I've never went in.
It's a publishing thing now called InDesign by Adobe.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've actually seen it, but I'm learning slowly. My next thing is Pro Tools. I don't know. Jimmy Haslip tells I don't need that. Says no, use something else. So I might use something else. I don't know, for a little bit of recording I want to do.
Well, the lead in for that to set up for getting to Pro Tools would be, or Logic or something, would be GarageBand. Because it's so simple.
I have that on my iPad.
Yeah.
And I only used it for audios, but now I'm using something different with this new setup. Yeah, I should check that out though. That's a good idea.
Well, I mean, the way stuff is laid out and how you progress through the building of things is very similar.
Oh, that's great. That's great. So tell me, Berkeley's you had a lot of meetings yesterday and you have some today.
And this morning too, yeah.
So this semester's starting up pretty soon, right?
Monday.
Next week, is it? Yeah, okay. We're at what, July 21st now, I think?
20th.
Today the 20th? Today's the 20th, that's right.
Inauguration day.
Yeah,
which is at noon, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to happen in a few minutes. I've been watching some of that on TV today. It certainly is an historic day, as they say, in many ways. So you are, tell me, it's Berkeley. What are you teaching exactly?
Now I retired about 10 years ago, and and I was still having fun with it, but I had bought into this thing called the phase out, which you did less and less each year for 6 years, and then the contract was over. So John Ramsey, we started together the first day at school, 82, and he was running the department. I said, John, it's over for me, but I'm still having fun and they occasionally still clap. What can we do about this? He said, okay, well, you want to keep going, then you can. And so I'm still there like 10 years later after I retired.
That's great. You got to keep doing stuff you love to do. That's the other thing that I've figured out over time is to do what you love to do.
Yeah.
Talking with Dom Famlara about that. And do you know Dom?
Yes. And we've worked together. We worked together, I think, well, maybe 15 years ago with Franco Rossi at Accademia Musica Moderna. And I think we were we did Summer Stage, it was called.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what an interesting man, you know? And you know, he's uniquely Dom. You're
yeah.
uniquely Skip. And I love this. I love this about what both of you have done and what you're doing. You're doing your thing and you're helping people. You're eliciting more potential, eliciting, you know, and helping people to reach their potential through all your teaching over the years, all your education in your clinics.
Mhm.
Dom does his thing, and you know, we're all. I guess I learned late. I go off on these tangents, but I'm fully aware of it. It's the ADHD kicking in.
Mm.
For
Well,
anyone
you're
out
not
there,
the only one with that.
there's a brand new book that just came out from a Harvard professor who is a friend of mine. His name is Dr. John Rady. Came out last week, so that'd be the second week of January 2021. It's called ADHD 2.0. And I got to tell you, it's a super easy read, and it really talks about the blessings of ADHD,
Right.
including, but also talks about challenges. My son, my dad, me were wired up the same way, total ADHD. So I go off on these tangents, and then I went off on another tangent about ADD. So now I go back to saying that my original thought was, I guess we live to learn with this, or learn to live with this, is that being ourselves is so important, no matter what area of life we're talking about, because it just makes no sense to try to be like somebody else. It just doesn't. You can be inspired, you can be motivated. And I see you and Dom and other people, you help people to grow into and evolve into themselves. That's a really, it's a gift. Sergio too. We all have the same goal in mind. I do it in my work, you do it in your work.
Yeah.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, and that class that was about those two questions, it would eventually get around to that it just looks like I'm teaching drums.
Okay.
It's like that's our pencil, but you know, what are you going to do with it?
Yeah, you know, somebody was telling me, I can't remember who, if I was a plumber, I'd be doing it, but plumbing would be my vehicle.
Right.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, and that's part of that thing about why are you playing, what are you trying to communicate is, I met a guy at that club one night. We were playing and we were burning along, and these guys were at this table right in front of us talking and not paying attention. I could reach out and touch these guys, you know, they were just oblivious. So when I got off the stage, I went over to them and I said, well, how'd you like that? You know, I got right in their face. And one of the guys, the other guys went, and one guy said, you know, I'd like to talk to you about that. And he became the best man at my second wedding. He was one of the best listeners in the world. He didn't know anything about music, but he knew when the energy changed and what was going on with the energy and the atmosphere, what was being projected to him. And he was a guy that was successful in, it turns out, in international banking.
Oh, no kidding.
But through hanging out with him and knowing him everything, we were doing the same thing. He was helping entire cultures of countries to get better by channeling money to them. It was no different than me channeling paradiddles. It was the same thing, you know.
Oh, that's great.
So that's why that thing ends up being, it just looks like I'm teaching drums. And then now I get guys that come back. Now I have a plate glass door so I can see who's on the other side. But it used to be a knock on the door and it would be like Max Roach or somebody like that, which actually happened. And or Terry Bozzio, or, you know, all Steve Smith, all these people would come back. And after 30 years, not those guys would say anything, but other students would say, you remember me from 1984, and they would go, you really helped me because many times it's nothing about the drums.
Exactly. Yeah. I was telling somebody the other day, I said I taught drums from 88 to 90 private lessons. I was horrible. I hated it. And I hated it because I didn't know what to do and I didn't have a system. And I was only thinking about technique and notes and not anything else because I didn't understand yet. And I felt a huge relief of stress when I stopped teaching and just only gigged but now, if I've been thinking this for a couple of years, not that I will, although I have a potential student right over here sitting next to me. Emily said she wanted to play drums at one point, right?
Yeah.
She still does. Okay, so she'll be my first student if I ever teach again.
Get her to sign something. It's a draft. That's
Yeah. So, but I would do I would do a much better job now. Because I wouldn't even use a book at first. I mean, there's so many things we can do without a book. And if I should use a book, well, I need to know which one. But I have a starting point, and it's more about the person than it is about the paradiddle, like you say.
Yeah.
And, what they want, what they need, where they're at, and where they want to go.
And that's why when you can, it doesn't always work to start with this. But if you say, well, why are you playing? I mean, I've got, why are you playing? Why do you want to do this? And I've had guys that go, yeah, well, I can meet a lot of chicks, that kind of, it was like, yeah, okay, this is, I understand this response. I'm dealing with somebody that's 12 years old, regardless of what their license says.
I have to tell her what you just said. So if you start playing drums, you got to figure out why. And it could be, you could get in a band and meet a ton of guys. There she goes. Okay.
So you end up figuring out where they're coming from, and then and what would you like to say to them? What do you want those people you're trying to reach with what you do? And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is they want to do. If they, like, I want to be, it could be Om Mani Padme It could be, okay, good. Let's go there.
I love that. That's beautiful. But that's right. The why is probably more important than anything. And I said everything except the why, although I think I had it in me that's a part of it, but I articulated differently. But yeah, I've thought about an occasional student here and there, but well, I'll start off with my friend Emily first.
Yeah, do it for free and see if they like it, and then if you like it.
Yeah, I probably won't charge her money for it. She's best friend of the family, and I think it'd be good. We could do some duos.
The Allman Brothers, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Classic, right? Totally classic.
I can do this. Yeah. Well, you always could, but okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So you hope to bring it out.
Well, hopefully, but sometimes you have to be careful because sometimes asking the question is too intimidating. It's like, no, we don't want to. I haven't thought about that, and I'm not ready to divulge my secret thoughts. And that might be that I never thought about that. Might be the secret thought. So it ends up being like,
Yeah, good point. The other thing I find interesting, you might like this book, if I can find it. I know I have it close by because I showed it to, here it is. So now we're diverting for a second. So, but there's a correlation here. I've done a lot of work with, mostly with people with movement disorders and primarily Parkinson's. All right. Well, it doesn't really matter what the problem is. You could have no diagnosis and not move well. You just, for whatever reason, like my mother, for example, she's moving better now, but we all have a brain and a nervous system, central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, and it all works together. So whether it's the learning disability or the autism spectrum disorder or Fragile X or developmentally delayed or Parkinson's or just humans, we have a brain, we have nervous systems, and music has been very helpful in getting people to move differently. And usually they start to move better. We just have to, integrate this. And again, it's how they learn.
Mhm.
Everyone's uniquely different. But this book is like a textbook. It's not a read, it's a study. It's a handbook of neurologic music therapy. Have you ever seen this?
No, but I just screen captured it, so I got it. Thanks.
Oh, good. Yeah. It's a little pricey, but I almost saw it for like $40 the other day somewhere, but it's, maybe $50. But I'll tell you what's really cool about it is it's written by, many, 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 many doctors, PhDs. Not that that necessarily matters, because there's bad research out there. Sometimes it comes from funding, from what the funder wants the result to be. But this is just plain old research. Every chapter is written by a different team, the 27 chapters. And, they really go into the inner workings of the brain and what is actually happening, whether you're listening to music, because that's one type of brain activity, is the listening to the music. So an external source versus the internal creation. Even if you're just thinking of it, or you're, singing in the shower or whatever, then there's a different chemistry that happens there, different activity in the brain, different neural circuitry that's developed. If you're playing an instrument, it can, my point here is actually has to do with ADHD or ADD, that this can help to just hone in and bring the two hemispheres together, to better bring them together, more, get more interaction between the two hemispheres of the brain. And the end result, especially with a coach who understands, whether it's teaching drum lessons, teaching people how to walk again, like what I do, is music is helpful. It can be helpful. It can be very, very helpful. And it really has to do with what happens in the brain. I'm sure you're familiar with all this, but if you're interested in a really good book that's a great study guide with a bibliography that's huge, so you can tap into other research, it's some of the best stuff I've ever read. And so now I use this in my training a lot, because when people can create music, it's even better. And especially if you're in a band, you're in a situation, even one other person, you have external, because they're giving you something through their expression in music. And then you're creating your own based on, so the response thing, or the whatever you're doing together, you have the best of both worlds. It's so cool.
No, I don't know the nuts and bolts of it. I only know I started teaching in '64. So I did it with a lot of different kids, different ages and different styles. I mean,
Yeah.
Drumline things and stuff like that. And so it just became a thing over time that I sat and I spent a lot of time thinking about how I learned things all the way back from when I was single digits with Ralph Pace, how I put things together. My mother knew my lessons much better than me, but it took a while to get it around to like, wow, I can do something besides play the snare drum. But it was practical experience stuff of spending a lot of time with the instrument and with myself to be able to do that. But yeah, I'm interested in the nuts and bolts for sure. That's why I captured the cover.
Good. Yeah. I think you like it. I haven't even gotten through the whole book, and I've had it since probably last April, because I've been concentrating on the chapters with learning disabilities, ADHD, and movement disorders, because that's my clientele. But eventually I'll get through the whole thing. Then Emily and I start a band. Did he get inaugurated just now? So he's our president now?
I thought it was going to be a 12.
That's what I thought too. Yeah, I'm getting a report from Emily, who's watching the TV, says he just got sworn in.
Oh, wow.
So we just changed over.
Oh,
during our talk.
Right.
We now went from one to the other.
A different kind of history. It was like, Yeah, we almost saw it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, we can watch the replay on that one. Yeah, I thought it was at 12 too. So, but I'm sure we'll see it over and over today on the news. So that'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, what projects are you working on right now? Do you have anything, any kind of books, projects, recordings?
Yep. I'm working on a thing called right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left. It's line 33 from Stick Control.
Oh, wow.
And it ends up being, I've been doing it for
Excuse
a
me.
couple of years now, and I got like 50 pages in a booklet. But none of it's mine, really. It's all these stuff that I've taken from other sources. And I'll send it to you, you can check it out. But what it is that basic sticking is something that happens through all cultures.
So line 33, you said right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left.
Yes. And it's from hand drumming.
Okay. So stick control, is that the
Georgetown.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, yeah. I have that book somewhere.
Oh yeah, well, that's the primary for me. It's pretty much, that's what I use. I don't spend a lot of time with all the rudiments, although they have to do them for school, you know. But the first 13 that are on page 1 are the impetus for all the things that are through the whole book. They're all combinations of singles and doubles. And then if you were to talk to Elvin back in the day, he'd say that's what everybody's doing. It's just singles and doubles. So you learn what all these combinations are. And it's like the zeros and ones for the computer. You can do anything with them.
Oh, yeah, right.
By how you put them together. So it ends up being very, very simplistic, but the idea is that it's, where do you want to go with this?
Right.
And so there's all these different styles that came from hand drumming. So you can, I'm looking to see if it's in Indonesia and Thailand and their drumming as well. But Egypt, Africa, India, United States, the Caribbean, New Orleans, Stanton Moore, you know, John Vodakovich, Herlin Riley. I even have Andrew Hilaire from 1917 doing it on some early ragtime stuff. But it's like, and then Billy Hart is, and he and I have been talking about the same thing, because he's working on the history of, this is for the history class about Soviet jazz drumming, 1880 to 1960. That's what that one runs that I do.
Oh, wow. Jeez,
and it's 2 hours a week for 15 weeks. Then that starts Monday. And then the other one runs Survey drum styles 1960s to the present. But that doesn't cover just jazz. That's rock, jazz, funk, fusion, and world. Because I
need to go back to school at Berkeley.
I'm thinking about, that's one of the things I'm working on with Dom and with Dave Frangione from the New Modern Drummer stuff is we started that. Sergio and I are part of this thing for the board for the education element for the magazine.
Oh,
and
that's great.
How you can spin that out so it can be online classes. Would people opt into wanting to do it as a class as opposed to doing it for entertainment? Maybe it can be both, but
yeah,
we'll
I mean, I would buy it if it was out there for non-student. Just keep that in mind. I'm sure there are others who would too. I bet there's a market for it.
Well, I've gotten feedback from students that, oh yeah, I would take that in a minute kind of thing. And they've already spent a fortune to find out about it with me at school, but this is beyond that. But yeah.
You know, speaking of singles and doubles, it made me think of Tony Williams, because have you ever noticed, if you listen to, you know, Four and More and My Funny Valentine, those two albums, and maybe the one before that where George Coleman played, no, he was on the live ones too. But Tony had this interesting evolution where he went from, you could clearly hear the doubles, to, I don't know which album, if it's, you know, Sorcerer or Kilimanjaro or ESP. No, maybe not that, but and then I read about this because I listened to him all the time years ago, and I still do, but not as much, but I still do. But he had an evolution where he intentionally went to mostly singles. especially in the 80s and 90s. Well,
Mhm.
probably 70s too. When I only saw him twice, and it was like every drum solo was like an orchestration, a beautiful orchestration. A lot of flams, a lot of singles, no doubles, no
Mhm.
bounce. It wasn't like there wasn't a rebound ever. It was a controlled double. If it not a da da bounce, it was da da. And that he said that was he wanted to just have a more intense sound, and he got it. He must have been really. You saw him. You probably knew him. I mean, he had to have really strong hands and forearms and all that stuff too.
Yeah, he wouldn't talk to me about drumming. I tried for weeks at a time.
Isn't that funny?
He only wanted to know what the band sounded like.
You know, it's funny. I got to know Dave Weckl a few years ago, and then when I recorded my CD in LA, I ended up going to his house. And the thing when I see Dave, and I don't know him real well, but whenever I see him, the only thing we talk about are muscle cars.
Yeah, yeah,
We don't talk about drums.
yeah.
Hardly, a little bit, hardly at all. We did an interview, Mindsets for Success interview, so we talked about drums and that. But we off camera, no, it's all cars. He's got this beautiful Corvette now, and the Mercedes that he has with this super beautiful turbo engine that just goes like 0 to 60 in 3 seconds or something.
You.
We love fast cars, so it's kind of fun.
I put the right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left in your in the chat.
Oh, great!
And you can take a look at that. And then there's about 9 gigs of support material.
Oh, man, beautiful. Oh,
If,
good. I'm going to save this right here. Perfect. Oh, I appreciate that, Skip.
and
I don't want to hold you up either. I think you mentioned you have something at noon, so I don't want to hold you up if you have to go.
well, it
I
was
could talk for hours. We should do this again.
we can
Part 2, part 3.
Right.
Start a little Skip Hayden series
Right.
here.
Yes, it's the
Seriously.
1.0, 2.0, 2.5, you know, like the book from Don Ratty.
Is that, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But so if you'll take a look at that, but you'll see that there's, I think, 16 examples of basic rhythms. There could be 40,320 different combinations, but who's counting? So the basic 256 would do, but I've only stuck with those 16 because you only need a couple of them. And each of those examples of stickings fit along with and are demonstrated in the discography and videography that are on the later pages. So it's all stuff I stole from other people, but in combination, you can put one thing to another. So each thing ends up being a doorway to another thing, and not necessarily chronological, because the last page is about one of the earliest examples from 1917.
Oh, man. Okay, so I am just trying to check this out here. Here we go. Oh, Pathways, a journey through development of, oh, yeah. Right, left, right, right, left, right, right, left. I love that. Sequence variations. Okay. I'll be going through this today for sure. Oh, thanks, man. This is great. Oh, this is great. Yeah, you know, I think that well, some people might be happy about it and some people might not. But I thought about playing again live post COVID. Looking at Emily, she used to come out and hear us all the time. It's been a few years. And I just don't know what I would want to put out there, but I can tell you this, it won't be for money because that became a job. Now, it could be for money, maybe, but it has to be about the music first and the intention first. It's not about the money. I don't care about it.
Right.
So I'm starting to gather
It could be a
information.
combination, you know, it could be like a little bit of money and
True.
a little bit of playing. It could be a lot of playing and a little bit of money. It could be a lot of playing and a lot of money.
Yeah, it's true. I don't know if you know Bobby Thomas Jr.
No, I don't. He was after me with the weather report.
Oh, that's right, because you play a Mysterious Traveler.
Yeah.
Ah, yes, man.
So it was
We,
Um
we
Ramao.
need to do a whole nother thing just about that experience.
Yeah,
I
okay.
want to hear your experience with that. Yeah. Yeah, he and I are going to do eventually here pretty soon a little project together. Hand percussion probably, but it's really going to be centered around that book that I showed you.
Mhm.
And the intention of using it for improving movement and then just general healing. So um, we've been talking about it since last May, and now we're ready, just about ready.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I'm sure he feels that if he's going to do it, it'd be worthwhile. I don't know if he's done any of that kind of stuff before about what the usage was for, but it seems like a real nice path to follow. For it's not about so much about music, it's something about what you're talking about within the practice that you have. What you're doing with the music
yeah,
is
yeah. The other thing too is like mhm. He's in Miami. He's been there. Well, he might always have been there, but he's been teaching. He works with kids all the time, young kids,
okay.
6,
Yeah.
7, 8, 10, 15. And so he's way ahead of me in that department as far as working with that age
Mm.
group. And then, we each have our own unique knowledge and intentions. And I think it'll merge together really beautifully. He can help to guide me, and I can help to guide him in different ways.
Yeah,
So,
it might be a real connection for people to be able to get to being able to move from relating to how they moved as a kid, because it's a connection of the same thing.
it is. It is. It's totally. Oh, we have to do a part 2 and a 3 because there's a lot to be said in that. I think that one of the things about conversations like these with people like yourself who have so much knowledge and experience and wisdom to offer is that you're able to express it. You're able to come out with things like you just said, connecting music with movement, but maybe it's movement from 60, 70 years ago, how we moved, and that's powerful stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if you could get them to think about what it was like for them to learn how to walk, period.
The closest I've come to this is post stroke, let's say, or they had a fall and they had surgery and they need to, not that they need to learn how to walk again because the brain wasn't affected like a stroke, let's say, but
Mhm.
still learning what to do. You have to think first. So it becomes a conscious effort. And then eventually it becomes subconscious, just like playing a paradiddle,
That's
or
right.
playing a groove. You don't have to think anymore. You can actually tune in now on your message with the groove is going on under, the feeling. So they can walk. But what we find is music is really helpful, but it's only helpful, or I should say, no, not only, it's most helpful when it's an appropriate tempo for their ability and they like the music they're hearing. So we have to find out what they like because it may remind them, as music often does, of
Mhm.
a time in their life that was great. And if they can go back to that and the tempo's right, we have a nice combination going on.
Right. And you can take things that they like stylistically and put it into any time and slow it down for them.
Oh, that's true. Why did I not think of that? Skip, thank you, because there's the AnyTune is a free app. You can import
Well,
a
I think you
song
have
into
to, yeah.
AnyTune on the phone and then just slow the tempo down and it's digital so the notes stay the same pitch and then put it through the
And
Bluetooth speaker and bingo.
and if they have hearing issues, you can change the pitch so it can make it be within a range they can hear.
You're a genius. Take that. It's true. Okay.
Yeah. I have some land in Florida we can look at as long as it's low tide.
Okay, great. There's a bridge right down here too. Sell that. No, this has been fun, man. I don't know what your schedule is. I'm not trying to push you off. I do need to go in a minute though.
Okay. Yeah.
And I would love to do this again soon.
Okay. Mondays are not the best days for me starting next week because I'll be teaching.
No problem. I
But
have a lot of flexibility on my end.
and Thursdays, the same story. I'm going to drive to Boston for Thursdays. We'll see how that works. But Tuesdays, I usually get together with Sergio, but Wednesday or sometimes Friday might be good.
Good. Yeah, Wednesdays, Fridays are pretty good for me overall, especially Wednesday right now. So I'll tell you what.
Is that your golf day? Wednesdays are the doctor's golf day.
Oh, is it really?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I didn't know that. I should have known that though. So let's be in touch.
All right,
let's do
sounds
something
good.
even maybe next week. Even I'll be around.
Okay. Well, I'll know more by Friday about the
All right.
following week.
Great. Yeah, we need to capture this and put it out to the world. I think you're recording, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good,
If you
good.
want it, I'll send it to you.
You know what? If you don't mind, that'd be awesome because I think this was a completely organic conversation that just unfolded.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good, relevant information that people can learn from.
Yes. And no pesticides. It was organic.
No GMOs either.
Right.
This is GMO-free conversation.
Yeah, you got it.
All right, my friend.
That's great. So we'll try to figure out a time. This might be good on a Wednesday or Friday. I'll know more.
Perfect. All right. It's great to meet you, Skip. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. And thanks for the transcriptions.
Oh, you're welcome. If I can find the other ones, I'll get them out too.
Well, I can give them back. I can give them back to you.
Right. I forgot. Yeah, I know they're all online on Modern Drummer anyways. I've been too lazy to look. So Steve Gadd's going to join me in about 2 weeks for an interview.
Great.
And when John DeChristopher arranged that for me, and I love John, he's been very, very friendly.
Yes, he has the keys to all of the doors.
He really does. And he's so authentic with everybody. He's the real deal. He's never trying to impress anybody, just like I'm not. I just want to learn and share with people. And so Steve's going to come on. So I know I have that solo in my basement in a magazine somewhere. I have a few copies, but I went online and boom, there it was. So I just took screenshots, and I'm going to do that with some of the Roy stuff. But anyways, yeah, thanks, Skip. And if you send me this video, I'd appreciate it very much. And then we'll do something with it. And let's stay in touch, and maybe next Wednesday would be cool.
Okay. Let me know if there's something you want from that packet that helps to unlock it, because there's way more information. It's like, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
I made the mistake a year or so ago. I did a clinic at Sergio's store, and I was putting this together. It had only like 38 pages, this packet, but I couldn't decide what I wanted to do for the clinic. So I made up packets of 38 pages and handed them out at the clinic. And everybody was totally overwhelmed. It was like, not the way to do it. 1 page is it.
No problem. All right.
We'll see you soon.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Skip. Have a great day.
Yeah. I think it's going to get better from now.
Oh, yeah. I think so too.
Yes. Let's watch the news.
A new era. Okay. We're going to go check out the news.
All right.
I'll see you maybe next week. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch.
Take care, Karl.
All right. Bye-bye.